Hello, I know I'm a bit late to discuss Plena, this beautiful Nikon 135 1.8S lens, but I've been using this lens for about a week and I found some incredible stuff. Now, look, I own the 85 1.2 for more than a year now. The 85 1.2 got launched before the Plena was launched, and then the Plena got launched. I honestly had FOMO. I thought, shit, I just got the 85 1.2, and now Nikon has come up with the Plena. Looks like should have probably put my money somewhere else in this. Now, since then, I haven't bought it, and I've been sort of looking forward to using this lens and reviewing this lens and talking about this lens. Right now, I've almost tested all of Nikon lenses, or let's say I've used all Nikon lenses. So the question I had in my mind was: is this all in the mind, or in the narrative, or is this lens truly special? So, to be honest, what I found was quite shocking. Well, this is an expensive lens, $2,500 or probably more in some areas, right? So this is a very expensive lens in my country, India. This is definitely more than $2,500 US. So when you convert the currency here, it's more than that. And you know, this is a big, heavy lens, a special purpose lens. It's 135. Like even 105 is slightly more manageable in more situations, I guess. 135 makes it a bit more niche. 1.8, again, the 105 is 1.4. The fact that this is 135 1.8, this is like a standard 1.8 prime lens when it comes to light gathering ability. But this lens is different. This lens is different because of the compression it gives you, and therefore the kind of bokeh, the depth of field, the shallow depth of field, the kind of rendition it allows you to create with this particular optical design. That's why 135 is special. Now, before I, got to use the Plena, I've been using the 135 Samyang on my Sony body for about a couple of years now. And to be honest, I always loved using the Samyang 135 1.8. I always thought that this is a beautiful lens, very sharp, very good to focus. It can get quite close as well. Everything is perfect about this lens. Good contrast, good color reproduction, slightly warm like Samyang typically does. Everything was just right for me. So a lot of people have compared this to the lab lens. I know that, and most people have said that they're kind of neck to neck, the lab and the 135 Plena. So I can take this 135 Samyang to represent most other 135 1.8 lenses, and then user experience, user reference point to sort of understand, is a Plena truly different or is it mostly the same? So let me first talk about the autofocus. I was shooting in the evening, unfortunately, and I was shooting at 1/500th shutter speed, and I had to push the ISO up to I think about 1200 ISO. All photos are in focus, and that I have never used a lens when I've got 100% hit rate. So this lens in low light conditions, when a person is moving quite, I would say, not very, I would say quite rapidly towards the camera, this lens passed with flying colors. Now, what about the characteristics of this lens, the rendition and everything? I thought that this lens is only going for optical clarity and optical perfection. So, of course, it's really, really sharp. It's really, really fast. But when I put it against, setting sun, this is beautiful orange yellow glow that is coming from the background. And so what I did was I was moving the lens up and down, and I could see that, there is moments where this lens could catch the sunlight coming into the frame. The sun is not visible into the frame, but you could just see that the orange rays of the sun are coming into the frame, and that looked so beautiful. I was so happy that Nikon did not do away with those kind of things in this lens and just created a very, I'm happy that they did not create a very sterile lens that kind of everything is perfect, but something is missing because you just kept the poetry away out of the lens. And I think Nikon did not do that. They have they have ensured that the poetry is in this lens, along with optical mathematical precision, the precision of science and physics. Yeah, so I'm getting excited, hitting myself. Now, see, the thing is that there's a little bit of flare spot in this lens, and in some reviews, I've seen that the flare spot is typically uh, blue. In my case, this wasn't blue, at least not purely blue. I thought I saw a shade of green. You'll see my screen recording. Now that flare was there, and I found that flare to be really useful, especially when I was shooting vertically. Okay, when I was holding the camera like this, the flare had more space at the bottom of the screen, at the bottom of the frame, and I could really place the flare strategically and just sort of compose a kind of image that I like. I always find this online, and there's this long-term called Ken Rockwell. Is basically a Canon fanboy, and just my god, I saw his review where he talked about that this lens apparently does not produce fully properly rounded bokeh balls at the corner, because he found one or two that was slightly elliptical in some angle.
And you'll notice that the blur circles really don't remain as full circles shot wide open as you get into the corners. What Nikon's claim to fame about this lens is, which I think is more marketing poof than anything, is that it has very little mechanical vignetting, so you'll see that the corners, the blur circles are more circular and fuller. Is this important? Not really. It's not perfect either. You'll see they are a little bit restricted. Personally, I prefer them to be a little bit more cut off in the corners, because that keeps your eye from wandering off into the corner and keeps it more on the subject, which is the whole point.
And then he talked about how some older Nikon 135 or any of Canon's 135 or Sony's 135 lenses, they have more elliptical shaped bokeh balls that apparently creates a swirl in the background, which it does, by the way, and because you have a small back element of the lens that doesn't allow the bokeh balls to take circular form. So what in most lenses have that issue, and also the mount is not large enough, right? So optically they cannot design a lens like the Plena. So he said that it allows the eye to go to the center and focus on the subject, but then you don't have to frame the subject at the center, right? That's the whole point of you should have the creative choice, freedom to frame the subject on the left or the right, wherever you want, right? So your eye should not be drawn only to the center. That's a composition limitation, and if your lens asks you to do that, that's not a strength, that's definitely a weakness. So when I looked at this lens, okay, just look at how the rendition is. I love the background, okay, and this is not these are not like LED lights in the background. This is a real world picture. You can see the sun peeking through sort of these leaves and these branches, and you can see wherever you look, first of all, the rendition is beautifully smooth. It does have some amount of 3D effect. At least I see that. I can feel the distance between the branches. They don't seem to be smashed like onto the same plane. And the bokeh balls, to be honest, anywhere I look at the bokeh balls, they're all very uniform. They're all very round. So that's a beautiful shot whenever I look at it. And let's look at the next one particularly again. You see flowers on the left, and you see these light highlights on the right and at the top right, and you see everything is so beautifully rounded and soft. It creates that, it looks like it's the world filled with bubbles. It's like this lens creates this very special dreamy look that I think I haven't seen any other lens do, and I don't know if anyone will make a lens like this. I do wish Nikon to keep making lenses like that, like this. I think there should be a Plena line of lenses. That's just wishful thinking, I guess. Now, if you look at the next image, test 3, what I find very interesting here is that again, the bokeh fall off is extremely smooth. It's just beautiful. Okay, and by the way, there is each of these trees are about like 10-12 feet apart from each other, all right, and because the compression, the distance doesn't feel like that much. It feels sort of brought back into the image. And but I look at all these leaves. There's a lot going on in the background, and it looks very, very smooth. So I'm very happy with the results. In this particular last picture that I'm showing you right now, again, I can really perceive the depth. I can see that she's sort of walking in a plane which is not, the background doesn't look like a printed background, which a lot of people actually do not like. If an image looks like the person is standing against just a background, a printed background, this image does not make me, it doesn't look like that. And I have a whole lot of images here. I look at this particular one. I really like this particular image because I can see how the background fall off is gradual. You can see that the tree on our left is kind of in focus, and then the flowery plants behind her, and then as you start going backward, you'll see that the smoothness of the bokeh increases. So it does have that gradual bokeh fall off, which looks very natural. At the same time, the photos are absolutely sharp, tack sharp. The rendition is beautiful. Of course, the perspective of 135mm lens is beautiful, especially if you're able to compose it right. I especially like these shots for for half body shots. I think these are very, very beautiful images for half body shots. Well, anyway, I look at this lens, I just can't fault this lens. Okay, this lens is a very sturdy and well-built lens. To be honest, I find it very metallic and well built. I think it's built with metal till this point, which is amazing at this day and age when most manufacturers are going towards high-end, high-grade fiber or plastic. Nikon is still using very high quality, metal here. And this lens is a little beat up, by the way. This lens is a little beat up. I can see a slight bit of dent on this metal body, and I see that the metal body has been useful. It did, I guess, resist some of the impact for this particular lens. Yeah. So everything about this lens is, to be honest, this lens did surprise me, and despite the reputation, it did still surprise me. When I was sort of started using this lens, I was kind of worried that I'm going to regret buying the 85 1.2, and I'll probably tilt towards this particular one. What do I think of that? What does my experience tell me? I'll talk about that particular issue, the 135 versus the 85 1.2, later in a different video, because that's a completely different subject, and I guess that's more complex. Look, let me tell you one thing in this video first, that all focal lengths are different, will cater to different need states, different kind of situations. Of course, there are situations where you can use a 135, and there are situations where you can use an 85 but not an 135. So not a 135. So which means that there are special use cases where one lens can be used, the other lens cannot be used. So of course you can have a special need met by these lenses. So it's very difficult so it kind of is unfair to do a like-to-like comparison. But I do think for these focal lens, 135 and 85, for these two focal lens, first of all, it's a choice. Which one are you going to use more? Do you need low light more than a longer focal length? So that's a very, very important question. And what kind of perspective do you want? Do you want to shoot full body? Do you want to sort of use in low light? Depending on the use case, 135 and 85 fundamentally may not be interchangeable in your context. So first of all, you need to know that they are interchangeable or not. If you can manage with any of these lenses, then the question arises. Then you have this question, which one is a better lens optically, experientially, all those things, output wise, all of those things. So I think the question is also a very niche question to begin with. But when I bought the 85 1.2, I wanted to have a lens that's like the best of the best, right? And still is within my use case scenarios, which is why I got the 85 1.2. And I don't use the 85 1.2 all the time. When I think that the 85 1.8 is good enough, I just use 85 1.8. There are those situations when I use the Samyang 85 1.4 version 2 on my Sony a7 IV or adapt it to my Z8 because that's just a smaller, lighter lens and it's 1.4. But there are those very difficult conditions where I'm shooting against a lot of backlight and I want high color fidelity and everything. I want everything to be perfect. I reach out for my 85 1.2. So I had a very special, I wanted a high-end lens for myself, and the two, three lenses that I consider to be very high-end is the 105 2.8 macro, 35 1.2. I mean, I'm talking about the things that I have, the 50 1.8S, the 70 to 200 2.8S. These are the lenses that I think are very high quality. The 51.2 Sigma that I'm using adapted on my Nikon Z8, that's recording this video right now. Another very, very high-end lens. I wanted to have that. Does the 135 compete with the 85? Yes, it does. But how do they compare? I'm going to talk about that in the next video. Subscribe to the channel. Help me reach 8,000 subscribers quickly. The plan is to get you become more frequent. I want to get a little egged on by your support. So do comment and leave. And if you have ideas in your head, leave a comment and let me know what you think about the Plena. Do you want to buy one? See you.